Well, let's stay with this and more breaking developments because the Ministry of Defence have just made a statement in the last few moments confirming that British armed forces provided support to the US operation to seize the Manera tanker, including RAF surveillance and a support ship. That has come from the Ministry of Defence. That is the vessel that they are talking about, one of the two Venezuelan tankers that have been seized. Let's go straight to Westminster, straight to our political correspondent, Jack Fenwick. Jack, tell us more.
Yeah, that's right. We've had confirmation in the last few minutes, as you say, that the UK did provide support to US forces when that operation to seize that tanker was happening. Now, I don't think it comes as a huge surprise when we sort of started hearing that the US may try and seize this tanker in the last couple of days. There had been questions asked about whether the UK could potentially be involved, given whereabouts in the world that tanker was. We've just had a statement from the MOD. They say UK armed forces provided pre-planned operational supports. They were involved in the planning stages before that operation as well. They say that RFA Tide Force provided support to the American forces. Now, RFA Tide Force is a vessel that's often used to provide logistical support to the Royal Navy. And they also say that the RAF provided surveillance support from the air, so British planes being used there as well. We've also had words from the Defence Secretary, John Healey, in the last few moments. He said today our UK armed forces showed skill and professionalism in support of a successful US interception of the vessel Bella 1 while on its way to Russia. He said this action formed part of global efforts to crack down on sanctions busting. Now, as I say, these questions had started to be asked of the UK government, whether they were involved earlier in the day. At lunchtime today, there was a briefing from Downing Street officials for journalists. Now, that happened just after Prime Minister's questions when the news was just breaking that the US had launched this operation. Now, at the time, the Downing Street officials weren't providing any details. They were saying that they were not able to talk about the operational activity of a third country, even if that was involving them using British bases. But we have just had that confirmation in the last few moments that the UK was involved in that operation, both planes being involved and involved in the pre-planning stages as well.
Jack, I've got the full statement in front of me now from the MOD, and it includes assessments as well. And it says that the Bella 1 is sanctioned by the US under its counter-Iran sanctions aimed at stopping Iran from fueling instability in the Middle East. So they point to that. They also talk about recent assessments showing that the Bella 1 have been involved in illegal activity linked to the international terrorism and crimes, including Hezbollah, as part of a web of rising shadow activity that fuels and finances nefarious activity across the globe. So in a sense, repeating, and it's no great surprise, repeating some of the main lines that we've heard from the Americans.
Yeah, as you say, I think given they have confirmed that British forces were involved, it's not a surprise that they are going to sort of repeat the lines used by the Americans. But I think also, you know, we've got to see this in the context of the sort of various events that have happened in the last few days. Remember, when it came to the US launching that action in Venezuela a few days ago, the UK haven't criticised that, but also were very keen to say that UK forces were not involved in that. Now, obviously, with this, it's a different matter. Now, that may well be because of geography. We know that that vessel, that tanker was, you know, pretty close to the UK. That's why those questions had started being asked. But yeah, very much echoing the sort of language used by the United States when justifying why it was right to get involved in this action today.
Jack, thanks very much for the latest there from Westminster. I just want to go back to Texas, that round table that I said was just about to get underway. There, indeed it has. I just want to put the sound up and hear if she already is referencing this operation.
Perpetuated fraud of our benefit programs and programs that were created to serve the most vulnerable people in our country, to give them health care, to help developmentally disabled individuals. Not only were they here illegally and broke our immigration laws, but then they came here and stole from the American taxpayer.
Well, Christine, I'm talking about domestic issues. I would just stay with this for a few moments in case she gets asked or takes the conversation to these oil tankers, because she posted that long post that I read out a little earlier detailing both the operations. I tell you what we'll do. We'll come away from that. We'll clearly continue to monitor it. And if she turns to that, we will return to Texas and get the very latest.